Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are pulling back the curtain to uncover the invisible magic powering everyday modern marvels. I mean, have you ever actually stopped to wonder how global weather forecasting works with such insane precision? Or how self-driving cars can process terabytes, literally terabytes of sensor data every single hour to detect objects, navigate, and make split-second braking decisions? Well, the answer lies in a massive, fundamental shift in how we actually compute. Let's start with a pretty mind-boggling question. How do systems like ChatGPT or these massive global climate models handle billions of calculations instantly without taking thousands of years to load? When you've got millions of users firing off prompts at the exact same time, a traditional single-file line of computation just isn't going to cut it anymore. The secret sauce here is parallel processing. It's the art of taking a massive, seemingly impossible problem, shattering it into tiny pieces, and then solving all those pieces at the exact same time. All right, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the need for speed. Then we'll compare concurrency versus parallel processing. After that, we'll break down Flynn's architecture classification, take a look at organizing the memory, and finally wrap up with dividing the work. Okay, kicking things off with Section 1, the need for speed. Let's explore exactly why traditional sequential computers simply aren't enough for us anymore. For the longest time, the classical scientific method was basically a three-step dance, right? Observation, theory development, and physical experimentation. But modern science has totally evolved. Scientists had to add a fourth pillar, numerical simulation. And that's because we're now tackling what are officially known as grand challenge problems. Whether we're trying to simulate the dizzying, chaotic complexity of atomic interactions in quantum chemistry, forecasting global weather using absolutely insane fluid flow equations, or mapping the entire human genome, these problems literally demand millions, if not billions, of calculations a second. So, the really crucial takeaway here is that doing one task after another completely breaks down under this modern weight. Think about a sequential computer like a single teacher trying to grade 100 incredibly complex calculus exams all alone. It's going to take forever, right? As our data grows and our computational needs just totally skyrocket, we need way more speed. We essentially need a massive team of teachers grading simultaneously. And that right there is the core driving force behind the desperate need for parallel processing. To actually solve this crisis of speed, let's jump into Section 2 and introduce the heroes of our story: concurrency, parallel processing, and multitasking. Now, it is super important we get these terms straight right off the bat. Multitasking is just an operating system feature. It's what lets you run Spotify, your browser, and a word processor all at once. Concurrency, though, is about managing tasks. It's a system's ability to make progress on multiple tasks by rapidly switching back and forth between them, which basically creates the illusion that everything is happening at once. But parallelism? Parallelism requires multiple physical processors. It is the actual, literal execution of multiple tasks at the exact same millisecond. Here is a great way to picture it. Imagine a group of workers maintaining a huge garden. Concurrency is like having one incredibly frantic gardener who rapidly switches between mowing, edging, and weeding. They're making progress on all three chores, sure, but they are only doing one single action at any given second. Parallelism is having an entire crew working on that garden at the exact same time. Someone mows, someone edges, someone weeds. That parallelism is exactly what gives us that massive, exponential leap in sheer speed and throughput. Now that we actually know what parallelism is, let's jump to Section 3, Flynn's architecture classification, and see how we organize the hardware workforce. Way back in 1966, a guy named Michael Flynn classified computer architectures based on two simple things: the number of instruction streams and the number of data streams. And this gives us a really neat matrix of 4 categories. First up, SISD, single instruction, single data. Think of your trusty old calculator or a vintage single-core PC, just doing one step at a time. Then we have SIMD, single instruction, multiple data. This is your graphics card, or GPU, taking one single command and applying it to thousands of pixels all at once. Next is MISD, multiple instruction, single data. This one's fascinating but incredibly rare. It's used mostly in highly fault-tolerant environments, like commercial aircraft flight systems, where multiple computers have to agree on a single outcome to keep you safe. And finally, MIMD. Multiple instruction, multiple data. This is your modern multi-core CPU or a massive supercomputer cluster. What's really wild to visualize here is the leap from that single sequential uniprocessor block to these highly parallel SIMD and MIMD structures. It honestly changed everything. MIMD is truly the heavy lifter of modern computing. Because each processor operates totally independently with its own instructions and its own data, it is incredibly flexible. It is exactly the kind of architecture you need to run hyper-complex, diverse applications like artificial intelligence or massive engineering simulations. Okay, so we've got our hardware workforce classified, but how do we set up their workspace? That brings us to Section 4, organizing the memory. When it comes to how processors store and share information, you've basically got two main starting points. First is the shared memory model. Think of this like a study group of students all huddled around a table, sharing a single notebook. All the computer's cores access one common space. Now, this is incredibly fast and honestly pretty easy to program, but it doesn't scale forever. Eventually, you just get too many hands reaching for that same notebook. Second, we have the distributed memory model. Here, every processor has its own totally private memory, like students sitting at separate desks. To share data, they literally have to send messages to each other over a network, usually using a standard protocol called MPI, or Message Passing Interface. It's definitely harder to program, but it is massively, infinitely scalable. So, to get the best of both worlds, today's top-tier supercomputers use a hybrid model. They just brilliantly blend the two together. Imagine massive clusters of multi-core processors. Inside a single node, you've got multiple cores seamlessly sharing that lightning-fast local memory. But to scale up to millions of calculations, those individual nodes are hooked up to each other over a massive, high-speed network using message passing. Yes, it is incredibly complex to program, but it yields the absolute best performance for things like large-scale AI training. For our final structural piece, we've looked at the hardware and the memory, but how do developers actually write the software for all this? Let's get into Section 5, dividing the work. Programmers generally rely on three main approaches to slice up the workload. First is thread parallelism, where multiple threads of execution run within the exact same program. You see this all the time when your web browser manages a dozen open tabs while sharing the same memory space. Then we have task parallelism. This kicks in when completely different jobs or functions need to run at the exact same time. Think of an online banking system handling your login, processing a transfer, and running fraud detection all concurrently. And finally, there is data parallelism, which is designed specifically to apply the exact same operation to massive, divided chunks of data. When you really put task and data parallelism side by side, the difference is pretty stark. Task parallelism executes completely distinct operational shapes concurrently. Task 1, Task 2, and Task 3 are totally different jobs. Data parallelism, on the other hand, takes a huge block of input data, slices it up into uniform little partitions, and applies the exact same operation across every single piece simultaneously before bringing all the results back together. In the real world, data parallelism is literally the backbone of machine learning and deep learning. It's what allows us to take a massive matrix of image pixels or a giant array of neural network weights and filter them all at the exact same time using thousands of GPU cores. By running a single instruction across all those multiple data arrays simultaneously, we absolutely crush the execution time. Stuff that used to take weeks on a standard sequential machine, it now takes hours or even just minutes. So we've seen exactly why parallel processing is so crucial, how we organize our processors, structure our memory, and write our code to conquer today's grand challenges. But here is the lingering question, the one that keeps computer scientists up at night. As our challenges continue to evolve and our data sets grow exponentially larger, especially with the explosion of autonomous systems and generative AI, how in the world will parallel computing architectures adapt when tomorrow's data grows by yet another billionfold? It is an incredibly exciting frontier. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.